we have tonight, instead of the normally scheduled artisan spotlight, what we have tonight is a more of a mental health spotlight. And Todd was gracious enough to join us for this one in particular on the eve of Never Alone 3. So we don't really have a normal game plan. With artisans, we have lists of generic questions and then we add some in here and there. But I figured today you're the expert more so than myself and JMax. So if we could just talk about the importance of mental health and what your views from your side of it are, what you do to help cope and recommend others do as well, that would be cool. After, of course, introduce yourself, as well.
Sure. We get to do that. Go ahead and do that now.
We can do that now. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Todd Stanfield. I've been wet shaving for about 5 years now. And I've really enjoyed the supportive community around the hobby. In my day job, I am a professor of social work. I'm the former director of a community mental health center. I was a therapist and counseled men, women, children for a number of years, and currently train therapists that are in our master's program. So this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart, both professionally and personally. Just knowing the life struggles that we go through, and also just, being aware that men's mental health kind of gets pushed to the background. It tends not to be talked about, particularly generationally. I think a generation before ours, I consider myself part of Gen X. And I think prior to Gen X, you had even less discussion of mental health, and Gen X, same thing. The newer generations tend to talk more about mental health than they used to. But certainly our fathers and grandfathers, probably did not have as a supportive of an experience. When I was in school, getting my master's, close to 30 years ago, the groups of people you had to worry about in terms of suicide were actually adolescent teenage girls and also men over the age of 85. That has shifted, and middle-aged men, one of the leading demographics to be at risk for suicide. And that number is just increasing. And men are, three times more likely than women to commit suicide. They are also more likely to be isolated, more likely to choose not to talk about their feelings, but to try to stuff them. Men are also more likely to self-medicate, so using drugs, alcohol, other addictions to try to deal with anxiety and depression. And quite often that, will help in the very short run, but it ends up causing more problems in the long run. In fact, a lot of men who are dealing with addictions actually have probably an underlying mental health issue, and they don't realize it. But once they try to get clean and sober, then those mental health issues come to the forefront. So they may have always dealt with severe anxiety or depression, but just because they've not been clean and sober in a while, they've not dealt with that underlying issue. So a lot of men struggle with what we call dual diagnosis. They have both an addiction and a mental health issue that they're dealing with. And that's really common. And quite honestly, it's understandable that so many men self-medicate because we do live in an environment where there's a stigma towards seeking mental health care. And there is a lack of mental health providers, particularly since the pandemic. We've had less mental health providers and increased demand for mental health services. And so even when you can find a therapist, you decide that you're going to get help. Oftentimes that help is not affordable. Like, it's hard to find affordable counseling. And that's why, and the name of this project is perfect, Never Alone, because the mistake many men make is just to continue to isolate, right? Or they get involved with the communities that are not particularly healthy, where they're not encouraged to talk about the things they're struggling with. They're just encouraged to do some of the more typical guy stuff, and nothing wrong with that as long as that community can be supportive. And so, a project like this that, brings attention to men's mental health, brings attention to things like suicide crisis lines, those types of things are very important because again, sort of the kryptonite for a man dealing with mental health issues is just to isolate and to not talk about it. There's a great deal of shame involved with mental health issues, which should not be, but it is the reality that we often will see ourselves as weak. And what's kind of contradictory is, let's say we have a friend that's the same age as us, another guy. If they were seeking help, we would have no problem with it. But when it comes to us, we feel different about it somehow. So it's like it's okay for another guy to, and we think we think if they ask for help, that's a sign of courage and strength. But if we ask for help, that's a sign of weakness and cowardice, and that we just need to toughen up. And I think there's a good balance there. I know a lot of people can fall into sort of a victimhood mentality. And, there's a lot of sort of an increase in bro culture where people just think you should, just be even more masculine in your denial of feelings. And I would argue that's not healthy. Like we're given feelings for a reason, and they can actually help us be better people, better husbands, better fathers, better employees, better bosses, better members of our community, better friends. And it's knowing how to channel those emotions and to use those emotions appropriately. That's really a part of an overall sort of wellness approach to men's health. So, if I could say anything to people that are worried about, their emotional health, struggling with things, wondering if they could get help, seek help. I mean, what's the downside of that? Particularly if you can find an affordable way. Many people don't realize that even if their insurance doesn't pay, and if you're here in the U.S., your insurance is supposed to provide some form of mental health care. That's part of the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act. We have legislation here that says that has to be the case. But what many people don't realize is oftentimes through your employer, you'll have an employee assistance program, right? And the employee assistance program will allow you to seek help from local mental health providers for free. And sometimes there's a limit. Sometimes you may have 5 sessions. Sometimes you may have 10 sessions. But sometimes those exist separate or alongside your insurance coverage. So if you're struggling and you're wondering, does my health insurance cover this? Is there an EAP program? Talk to your HR person at your work. They're professionals too. They have confidentiality they're supposed to follow as well. So just reach out to them and say, hey, does this job provide any mental health benefits? Because sometimes those insurance benefits are hard to figure out. Like they can be complex. It's different. Obviously, I'm here in the U.S., JMAC's in, Canada. And so they have some different systems for the way they pay, for things there. And it's different even in different parts of the country here and across different provinces there. So, it just varies from place to place. But asking your HR person or even calling your local community mental health center, or here in the U.S., and I'm not sure of what they've done in Canada yet, but here in the U.S., you can just call 988. You can pick up your phone, call 988, which is the suicide crisis line. It's great. It's that we now have one number. Used to, you had to call a big one long 1-800 number, and now you can just pick up the phone just like 911, but hit 988, and that person can help you find resources in your community. Right? They have a database in front of them. They can help you find affordable mental health care. So my advice is, why not try it, right? But as I'm fond of saying, and people are probably in this community probably sick of hearing me saying it, it's kind of like trying to find a therapist is like trying to find a barber. You may have to go through a couple bad haircuts until you find the one. I mean, I'm sure we've all had horrific experiences walking into a barbershop and walking out like a bowl cut or something we didn't want, right?
Or like this.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm increasingly getting follically challenged myself up here. And so, a good haircut, a good comb over style, if you will, is becoming increasingly important. But, in other words, the first therapist you get, you may not jive with them, and that's okay. You deserve to find somebody that you jive with. Right. And so, keep trying that until you find somebody that works for you. And that's important. Don't give up, because it'd be a very dude thing to do, to be like, well, I tried therapy, it didn't work. Well, you tried one therapist and they just didn't work for you. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad therapist. Their style just may not, I'm the kind of person that, yes, there's times when I need somebody who's supportive, but there's also times when I need somebody to sort of kick my butt and talk to me straight and tell me what I need to do. So in a therapist, I need somebody that's going to empathize with me and really hear what I'm going through and understand maybe if I've been through trauma and help me deal with that. But also when they need to call me on my BS, they'll do that. And that's, that's the kind of therapist I would want, is somebody who would call me on my own BS. And so, but some therapists, that's not their style. So, you just may have to find one that's your style. But even if you're not to that point of wanting to reach out to a mental health professional, mention it to your general practitioner, your family doctor, talk to them about it. They're trained to handle that as well. In fact, the majority of people who receive mental health care, particularly in the form of any kind of medication, the majority of that is done by family doctors and not mental health professionals. And not all mental health issues require medication. So don't assume just because you're going to seek help that someone's going to immediately want to prescribe you something, because we're now learning that for a lot of people, that's just not what should happen. It should be more, other forms of treatment, therapy and whatnot. But above all, don't remain silent. So even if you don't feel like talking to that family doctor or mental health professional, reach out to a friend, right? And if you don't have a friend in your own circle that you trust, where you feel like you have safe community with that person, first of all, find some more friends, but also look for people online, like in this community. For those of you that know, I have a YouTube channel and I haven't made video in a while just because of life, but I will definitely make videos again. And the reason I will is because of the community that exists around this hobby, and just the friends I've made and the support I've gotten from people. And it's unbelievable. Like when I've had, tragedies happen in my life, or the loss of a loved one, just to put it, on social media or on, Instagram, it's not the friends I already had. I mean, they reach out, but I'm overwhelmed by the people in this community that reach out and say, hey, I hope you're okay. Or they'll even follow up like 2 weeks after something happens. Hey, thinking about you, just seeing if you're okay. And Andy Wilmer, the opinionated Brit, and I did a whole episode of the Take Care Men podcast, Take Care Men Mental Health podcast, where we talked about how to be supportive to each other. So, you can go check that out. But it's important to just check on people. Sometimes people just want to know that you care, and oftentimes, as people trying to help others, we're afraid we don't know what to say. Well, you don't really have to say anything. You can just say, "Hey, man, how you doing?" And usually that opens the door. But sometimes you may have to also call BS on that, because I'm fine. It's like, well, are you really fine? Like, honestly, you're doing fine, for real. Like, if you're not, it's okay to tell me, So really checking on each other and making that slogan of never alone a reality, where you're reaching out and you're helping people. It's a reciprocal thing. In other words, when you help people, it helps you. Being there, building friendships is important for your mental health, other people's mental health, and for the health of any community that you're involved with. But I've kind of rattled a lot there. I mean, I've certainly got more I could talk about, but I want to kind of stop here and see if there's any questions or comments or anything so far.
I mean, that's a lot of great information right there.
Absolutely.
For sure. One thing I'll expand on, so the therapy, yeah. So, I mean, here in Canada, it's like everything else in Canada. Therapy's expensive. Especially if you don't have any coverage or an EAP through your work, and that is one of the reasons that I kind of got more involved myself within the community and the mental health aspect, because I didn't have access to therapy, but I had a lot of really good friends in the community, and then just talking to people, and it just helped, right? And like, none of my friends in the community, none of the people I talk to on a regular basis, none of them are healthcare professionals, none of them are therapists, but they don't need to be either. By the same token, it's like you said, sometimes you just need somebody to listen and to vent to, and then and sometimes just to bust your balls, right? Like, even if you're down, like, say, we're in the Canadian Mafia Show Discord, that's a great place. Like, we usually have voice chats in there every night. There's always a chat going. Everybody's having a good time. There's a lot of heavy stuff that gets talked about in there, and then there's a lot of ball busting too, right? And then sometimes you're down and out, and then you'll have one of the guys just like, "Yo, just get over yourself," or calm down or whatever, right? And they're having fun with it, but it's enough to make you stop and then chuckle, and then you're like, "Yeah, no, man, you're right. Yeah, no, yeah, all right. Let's party. Let's have a good time." So it's been huge, and the support from the community from Never Alone has just proven time and time again that it was a much needed thing. Like, heck, I get a DM from somebody this morning, that was out of the community for a while and just going through some life stuff, and they just reached out to say, hey, listen, this project means a lot to me, and this community means a lot to me, and without it, like, and the support from people, I don't know what I would do. And so they just want to say thank you for doing this and being there for people, and and that makes you feel good, even though you're going through stuff yourself. Knowing that you can potentially help somebody else is what makes it all worthwhile.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have 3 questions in the question box. If anyone watching has questions, especially for Todd, not so much for me or JMac, you can ask us questions whenever. But if you have questions, feel free to put them in the question box, and I'll get to them as I can. Peter, the shaving cyclist, would you mind touching on the importance of physical exercise and mental stimulation, excuse me, i.e. reading, hobbies, etc., and its relevance to mental health in general?
Yes, most definitely. Yeah, so if exercise were a pill, we'd all be taking them. Like full stop. Like we would take it every morning. We would not miss that pill. For a lot of people, exercise works better than antidepressants for depression. It works better than anti-anxiety meds for anxiety. A lot of that has to do with burning off sort of the energy and a lot of the neurochemicals related to depression, anxiety. In other words, you're kind of getting all that energy out in another way. And they're basically, barring, injury, no negative side effects to doing moderate exercise. And that's the thing. It doesn't have to be huge. You don't have to be, getting in, if you know anything about heart rate zones, you don't have to be up like in zone 3 or 4 or 5. You can do zone 1 and zone 2 training. In other words, low levels of heart rate, but just this moderate brisk walk, and even doing it for 5 minutes, like getting out of the house, going for a walk for 5 minutes, or if it's, you can't get out of your house, walking around your house, for like 5 minutes is huge. It really makes a difference, even those small amounts of exercise. Now, obviously, the more exercise you can get, the better the benefits are going to be. But certainly trying to exercise at least moderately 3 times a week is huge, ideally every day. Related to that, and by the way, that the benefits are there for both. And the benefits are slightly different, but similar for both aerobic types of exercise and for strength training. But also, and men, hold on here to your masculine card. But yoga is absolutely amazing for mental health. Like the benefits there are unbelievable. And I would say to you, don't knock it till you try it. It's pretty incredible. If you're a big wrestling fan like I am, WWE or even older, back in the old territory days of wrestling, you probably remember Diamond Dallas Page from WCW. He has a whole DDP yoga program, so if that dude can do yoga, you can explore it as well. I would just add into that part before we get to the mental stimulation. Trying to get adequate rest. For me personally, one of my biggest mental health challenges is I just don't sleep well. And I've tried to address that for a variety of ways. I sit in front of a sleep light every morning, or a SAD light as it's called. It's actually to treat seasonal affective disorder, but it also treats circadian rhythm disorders, which is something I have. My natural circadian rhythm is that I could sleep from 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. like a baby. Right. But that's not the way life works. You can't sleep from 2 to 10. Right. And so I have to get in front of that light every morning and get that sort of artificial, natural sunlight in an artificial form and take my melatonin at night. So going outside and getting natural sunlight when you can is huge. And if you can't, getting in front of a bright light, particularly in the morning, is really, really important. Hydration. I mean, you would not believe what hydration does for you mental health wise. I could go into that, but I won't. Also, a multivitamin, like putting a multivitamin to your routine is huge. So, rest, adequate sleep, hydration, natural sunlight, multivitamin are huge things you can do that don't even have anything to do with taking a medication or taking or even, going and getting therapy. The cool thing about mental stimulation, having things that you can do in terms, whether if it's reading or for guys like me that are getting, north of 50, the more we can challenge our minds, the better it helps us, stave off sort of things like Alzheimer's disease, dementia, keeps our minds a little sharper. It's not a 100% fail-proof, but it's been shown to definitely slow that and decrease the likelihood that you'll develop some sort of cognitive problems in older adulthood. So crossword puzzles, there's great games on the phones now. And I'm not talking about like your, general games you get addicted to, which I do all the time. I probably delete games from my phone, once a month because moderation's not in my vocabulary when it comes to those things. But there's some great cognitive games out there that challenge your thinking, right, to help you problem solve, that are really good and have some great research, behind them. And so, I would say, looking at some of those like cognitive, you just search an app store for cognitive games. Those are great. But, also just having a problem to solve, whether it be through a hobby or, something that you can do that's outside of work, that's not a stressful problem. Working with your hands is huge now. A lot of guys who work with their hands as part of their job, they're not interested in doing that as a hobby. But if you're like a person that doesn't work with your hands, consider doing that, because there's something about that physical use of your hands in creating something or in solving a problem that really helps your mental health. We had Brandon Shays on the podcast, and I loved what he said. We talked to him about wet shaving and mental health, and he had this great answer about that his mental health shave, in other words, what he's trying to do with his shave for mental health, varies depending on what he needs. So in other words, if he needs a time where he's just going to blank out and not think about anything, he uses like a mild razor and just enjoys his, the whole lathering process. But if he needs to distract himself, and if he needs a total distraction, if his mind will not quiet, he gets out an aggressive razor or, a straight razor, and he does something where he's got to focus, where he's got to like focus that energy in. And I think that's brilliant approach to that, right? Because you get that. I mean, we all get that. Sometimes we need to veg out, right? And sometimes we need to like focus in. And so I think that's a cool way that this hobby can, it can help you do that. But yeah, that's just some in terms of like mental, cognitive types of stimulation, but also some physical things you can do to address mental health.
Nice. You mentioned getting outdoors too. So there's a really good YouTube channel. It's called Walking Home. So you look a little ridiculous when you're doing it, not gonna lie, because you're like literally you're walking in place. It's like an exercise class where you're walking in place, and then step forward, step back, kicks and stuff. But I'm telling you, you can go from like a moderate, like heart healthy, like 20-minute workout to a pretty intense, like, you're going to get gassed, like hour-long workout. So, getting out is an issue if you have mobility issues, or you just don't want to be outside. You're not at that point yet, but you still want to get some exercise. It's a great way to do it. You can do it right in your living room or your kitchen, and just work out some stress that way.
Yeah, and there's entire YouTube channels that are basically filmed, like a hike filmed from a first-person perspective, from like a GoPro or whatever, that will actually be, it's like designed for you to walk along to, whether you're on a treadmill or just walking in place, as J Mac said.
Yeah.
So they kind of give you that feeling, the ambiance of being outside, of hearing the birds and hearing the wind and seeing the trees and all that. So it helps to kind of mimic that experience. But yeah, there's a lot of reasons people can't get outside. So definitely, like J Mac said, you may feel silly, but nobody cares. Only you care. So just knock it out, do it, get it done. Exactly. You'll still get the benefits. Here's the thing, again, with the exception of getting injured, right, which can happen, I have never regretted exercising. Now, it's hard to get me to that point, but once I have done it, I never regret it. I'm never like, oh, I wish I hadn't have done that, So,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Man, that bike ride was terrible.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Right.
All right. We got another question here. Jason, NYC. My mental health group dropped the ball. Thank God for wet shaving community. Helps my mental health. We're here for your brother. He's very, very happy to be in the community and finds a lot of comfort and joy in it, which he doesn't get from his mental health group. So
yeah,
that kind of touches back to what you said earlier. If your therapist isn't working or your group isn't working, find another one, right?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
If a group of guys lets you down, that's going to happen. People in this community are going to let you down. And that's one of the great things about this community too, is I think we all recognize we go through stuff. And so I've even seen people have disagreements before in this community that eventually come back around and recognize we all make mistakes and things like that. But don't let that bad experience with one group, because we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. Don't let that one experience stop you. Don't be, just like, well, I tried therapy. Well, I tried to talk to some guys. Well, that doesn't mean you can't try again. Try again, because, and keep trying until you find you again. This, to use my daughter's generation's language, this may sound cringe to some people, but you deserve to find a group of guys that will support you. You deserve that. And moreover, you need it. So yeah, if one group lets you down, just find another one.
For sure. Absolutely.
100%.
This is from Kathleen Rising Emu. Can you touch on those who take medication or maybe prescribed medication that there is no shame? It doesn't make you less of a person.
Yep. Yeah, most definitely. I mean, if you had diabetes, if you had high blood pressure, I mean, nobody's going to shame you for taking, the medicine you need for that. It's insulin injections or hypertension medication or what have you. Nobody's going to, shame you for that. And there is for, the mental disorders that are most commonly diagnosed, there are, neurological and chemical components to that. It doesn't mean that they can only be solved through medication, but they are helped by medication. When we look at the brain scans of people who are depressed, there's less brain activity going on, less electrochemical activity going on in the brain than those that are not depressed. So you can see it on a brain scan. You can see that depression, is occurring. We're really close in research to getting to blood tests that actually can detect heightened levels of anxiety that are above the norm, heightened levels of depression. So those neurochemicals, are there. I'm pretty transparent about my own, mental health struggles, and I have struggled with clinical depression in the past, and I take an antidepressant every day. And it's also one that hits adult ADD. I have adult ADD, and I take a medicine every day. It's one medicine that covers both of those things. And I just say it's Wellbutrin. And, I come from a faith background, and certainly a lot of times in faith backgrounds, there is even more stigma about taking medication or seeking help for mental health issues.
Yeah.
And, there's actually a story in not to get too much into religion, but there's a story in the Old Testament where Elijah is basically feeling suicidal. He asked God to take his life. He says, just bring me home to heaven. Like, I can't be down here anymore. And what happens is God sends an angel and causes Elijah to fall asleep. And then the angel touches Elijah, wakes him up, gives him bread and water, and then repeats the process. Sleep, water, food, not be tougher, not, read your Bible more, not pray more, but just taking care of yourself physically and mentally. And so, I know that, and in fact, that's what my dissertation research was about, is about how people have stigma about taking medication. And so, I would say, just like you might tell me, okay, stop being depressed, right? Just stop being depressed. You don't need medicine. It's just like me taking these glasses off and you telling me to see, right? I need these glasses. They help me see. They help me get to what I want to do. They help me accomplish my goals. So if that medication, and again, just like with the therapist and just like with the supportive communities, there's more than one medication to try. And it's really important to get in with a psychiatrist if you can. And I know that gives people people to get really freaked out about saying a psychiatrist. But, a psychiatrist is an MD, a doctor who is specializing in mental health. It's just like, if your transmission goes out on your car, you're probably not going to take it to your shade tree mechanic. You're going to go to a place that specializes in transmissions, right? So the thing about psychiatrists is that this is the one thing they do. Where your regular, family doctor, they've got a lot of other things they got to keep up with. And I'm very close to someone who had struggled for years. They tried almost every medication you can think of. They had gone through DNA testing to find the best medication for them. but that had all been through family doctors and like the local community mental health centers. They went to a larger city, to a research hospital, and found a way, which is not always easy, but found a way to get into a psychiatrist at that research hospital, got on a medication, and their life was dramatically different instantly for the better, with no side effects from this medicine. And that's simply because that psychiatrist knew exactly what was going on like that and got them on the correct medicine. But you may have to try a different medicine. Anybody that's ever, thank God I've never had to deal with high blood pressure, but I know for people that do have high blood pressure, you have to try a lot of different medicines sometimes to find the one that works for you. So the same is true for some medication. But yeah, there is no shame in taking medicine. And also, let me just say this, for people that do take medicine, it's important to realize that it's much like an antibiotic. You need to let it run its course. And also, you don't need to come off of it cold turkey. That can be dangerous. There's a rebound effect for a lot of the medicines that treat anxiety, depression, some of the other issues, bipolar disorder. You shouldn't stop those cold turkey. If for whatever reason you've decided, okay, there's side effects, or I just don't want to do this anymore, talk to your doctor, help them, get them to help you gradually come off of that medicine. Okay. And it can be done. I know someone who had a 5 Xanax a day habit that their family doctor had put them on, and the family doctor meant well. They weren't trying to get the person addicted to Xanax, right? But they were taking 5 a day, and it took some time to get them off of that. But they did it gradually and were successfully able to get off of it. So the point is, first of all, no problem in taking the medication. But secondly, if you are going to come off of it, talk to your doctor about it, and don't do it cold turkey, because you can have a rebound effect that is the worst. So just be sure you talk to your doctor about that if you do decide to come off of it.
Absolutely. And I feel like to your reference to glasses, maybe sometimes those medications for people are glasses for their brain to see more clearly, right?
That's right.
That's right. Good one. It's a good analogy.
So here's
the thing is, you may be saying, okay, well, I want to exercise more, I want to eat right, I want to sleep right, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you're not doing those things and you've been trying and that's not getting done, try the medicine and see if they get you to that point where you can exercise, you can take care of yourself. And maybe they get you there and you're able to start to maintain those. And maybe you decided, look, I have tried to come off of my medicine in the past. And honestly, I don't fully know why I've tried, other than probably those old remnants of like, oh, you're not tough enough, or you don't need that.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you when I'm on it, but my wife notices when I'm off of it. Even if I don't tell her, she's like, what's your deal? Did you take your medicine like the last couple of days? Because I get a little snippy, get a little short with the misses.
Sometimes I gotta say that to my wife too. Hey, did you take your meds, you crazy bee? What's going on? Got a question from Cahoon, 1776. 23 years active duty military. A lot of service members afraid that they get kicked out of this. They seek for mental health. Hopefully, people will stop thinking like that and get the help needed. Absolutely,
100%.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, just briefly, there's been a culture within both the military and in law enforcement, LEO, of not talking about problems. And in fairness to those men and women that serve in those capacities in public safety, law enforcement, first responders, and in the military, sometimes they've had to have that mentality to survive, to get the job done, to persevere. But the secondary trauma you experience within the military, and sometimes direct trauma, obviously, but certainly secondary trauma within first responders and LEO is huge. Thankfully, we're seeing that change quite a bit. And even here in the U.S., where the VA provides most of the services for veterans and active duty people, the VA has started contracting with private, contractors, so that it's somebody other than the military providing the services. So that's really changing dramatically. But it's been slow coming, and I think a lot of people in the military have suffered in silence for years.
Yeah, I would think that men in general, like you said, there's that mental stigma that you have to be tough, but it's almost like accelerated with military and Leo personnel, because that's what they have to be, right? They have to be tougher guys than the rest of us. So I could see that being even added stress to the stress on top of it, right? Uh, Ian, always here with a listening ear for anyone who needs it. You are never alone. Awesome. Thank you, Ian.
You Ian?
And this is from Apes. That's Chris, Jason's wife, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
What is your opinion on smartphone addiction or high use of your smartphone? Good question.
Good question.
I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I love this community a lot, and I don't want to lose it. But there are times when I wish I could just completely delete Instagram, Facebook, and just completely go off the grid for an extended period of time. And it's hard when you're wanting to promote projects like this or do things like this. You know, you want to stay in touch and be available for people. But, you know, I would say just like anything, you know, everything in moderation. You know, like I said, like right now, there's no games on my phone. Now, that may change. You know, I may put one back on or whatever, but it's really easy for me to zone out, to sort of escape. And that's appropriate for a limited amount of time, right? Just to veg out, do the thing. But if you're like, you know, eight hours goes by and you've been, you know, playing, you know, whatever on your phone, or even just on social media, I mean, I'm a hillbilly from North Alabama, but I do have a PhD, which means that my brain is a little bit okay. It's half, maybe above average, but nonetheless, I still find myself in that death scroll, whether it be on Instagram or TikTok. I'm sitting there going, what the heck am I doing? Like, why am I, it's like Pavlov's dog, right? Like slobbering at the mouth to get that little hit. And so what we're doing is just trying to get those little dopamine hits, right? Like we're little dopamine fiends. And so trying to find a healthy way to do that. So, you know, put down your phone, go for a walk, right? Put down your phone, call somebody on the actual, you know, phone, on your phone, you know, write a letter to somebody, you know, do something else other than that phone. So yeah, the addiction happens there. There's a lot of, you want to look into some, you know, great videos out there on like dopamine detox, where you basically, you know, try to make yourself go through discomfort. We've gotten to where we just medicate. And so a lot of that picking up the phone is just us medicating boredom. Like we're just bored, or there's something else we're feeling and we don't want to deal with that feeling, so we just push it down by doing something else that's fun, you know. And like I said, there's a time and place for, you know, your things, the escapism on your phone and your hobbies and everything else. But as long as you're not, you know, as long as you're not avoiding the responsibility to deal with your mental health, to deal with, you know, bigger issues in your life, it's real easy sometimes to zone out and disconnect. So you just have to be careful and do it in moderation. But I think for, you know, this time in history, it is one of the biggest threats to our mental health is our addiction to our smartphones.
Yeah, it can definitely lead to problems, you know, for sure, especially, you know, getting into watching the wrong type of content or just getting into the wrong things, right? Or into toxic communities or just toxic places. And that's like one of the things I love most about the shaving community is probably the most non-toxic community I belong to. Like, you know, I've been using the analogy a lot lately. I'm in a Telecaster group on Facebook. So it's all about the Telecaster guitar. It's my favorite guitar, right? And it's even in there, it's just, like in wet shaving, we have little disagreements, but it usually, you know, everything gets patched up. Everybody says their thing, and then they kind of see eye to eye somewhere, and they move on. But like in that group, for instance, somebody will post a picture of a guitar that's not a Fender Telecaster, and then you get the people in there, oh, that's not a Fender, that's not a Telecaster, and then it just goes to absolute crap. And it's like, what is wrong with you people? Like, and there's so much of that in social media. But on the other side, then, you know, I'll back to the Discord. Like I said, with the nightly voice chats that we have over on our Discord, it's kind of it's the opposite of the scrolling, right? Because you're just in there, we're all hanging out. A lot of the people are on video, so you can see the person you're talking to, or you can have your camera off, whichever you choose. And we talk about everything. Like it's almost like a big group, like a therapy session. You know, a whining and moaning session in a way, a venting session, you know, busting each other's chops, having some fun, and then even talking about stuff that just life, right? So that's been really therapeutic for me, and I know for a few other people as well. It's just, then you look forward to it, right? Like in the evening, if I get bored of scrolling, like you're saying, and I just find myself going down that rabbit hole, I'll go to the Discord and I'll look and see who's in the voice chat. It's like, oh, there's like 7 people in here. I'm going to jump in and shoot the breeze for a while.
Yeah,
Yep.
and so the difference there, real quickly, is the difference between consuming content and making connections, right? So you can sit there and just consume content all you want, and unfortunately, everything's reduced to a short now, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever. Or you can connect using the technology we have with your smartphone, connect with people in Discord or other avenues, and have a real conversation with a real human about real issues, and that's the difference there.
100%.
For sure. We have a question from Benji Holmes. Can you speak to how many men are experiencing similar struggles, yet we stay in silos and often don't prioritize deep connections with other men for support?
Yeah, so Benji's actually one of my former students, and he's a therapist in the Nashville area. So if you're looking for a good therapist in the Nashville area, I know we got people in the Middle Tennessee area. Benji, you can put your contact info down there in the chat, let people know about you. But yeah, I mean, we tend to sort of stay in our little areas and not really branch out and talk to people outside of sort of our usual circle of influence. Be willing to branch out and look for support groups that are advertised, online or, in your local paper. Local papers are starting to die, at least here in the U.S. But, anytime that you can find places where there's like community announcements about things going on in your community, look for support groups that are announced. So there's, depression support groups that are out there for men specifically. And, if you reach a level where you have gotten some health yourself, consider starting one in your community, a depression support group for men. There's a lot of models out there that exist that you can find for, like the Movember thing that's coming up, in November here pretty soon. They have a whole model for getting together with, other men about mental health issues. There's a variety of those out there, but yeah, it's real easy for us to sort of stay just in our lane. And here's the pressure that I feel a lot as a man of a certain age. Like, I'm so focused on providing for my family, and doing my job, and I worry about financial things a lot, like I have the stress of finances on me, and just wanting to, to be a good provider, to be a good husband, to be a good father, and constantly sort of fighting that voice that, says you're a failure, you've not done this right, you've not done that right.
Yeah.
And if you keep all that crap in, it just eats you up inside. And the thing is that other men feel the exact same way, but you don't know it, right? And the phrase, me too, has kind of come to, mean something else, related to another movement. But there's really no more powerful words in the English language than me too. It's in essence never alone, right? Like, I've experienced that too. I've had that feeling too, of feeling like I'm an imposter, like I'm not being a good enough husband or father or whatever, or I'm, you get to a certain age, and you're like, I'm not where I thought I would be financially, or I'm stuck in a dead end job, or I hate my job, or whatever. Other men are experiencing those things, and it just takes one person to start talking about it. And I tell you what I've seen happen too, is I've seen like someone mention something in a group setting and it fall flat, like nobody pick it up. But then behind the scenes, somebody contacts them. So even if you're in a group and you say something and everybody's just like crickets, and you feel like, oh gosh, I'm like, now I feel like a big idiot because I've tried to share something, and trust me, somebody's going to come through the back door and be like, hey, I'm so glad you said something, blah, 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 because they just don't feel safe. So yeah, unfortunately, we get in our little ruts and have a hard time getting out, but it takes courage to do that. It's just to bust through and ask for help. Again, you deserve it. So don't be silent, reach out.
Absolutely.
100%.
And like J-Mac always says, this, when you see these, it's almost like a beacon saying, hey, this is a guy I can talk to and reach out. I do have a question before I get to these last couple in the question box. So someone reaches out to you and says, hey, I just need an ear to bend or whatever, and you're listening. What are some good signs that people can watch for that says, okay, this is now beyond what I'm capable of helping with?
Yeah.
It's now to the point where I need to recommend this person talks to a professional, because there's like a gray area there that if somebody says the wrong thing, it can have a really bad effect, right? So there has to be a line, with people to look for signs that say this is no longer something that a friend can handle. It's gotta move past that, right?
Right. Yeah. And again, Andy and I have a whole episode on that. And so I definitely would encourage people to go out there and check. I can't remember the episode number, but we talk all about how to be supportive. But a few things about that, one, the first thing I would say is shut your mouth and use your ears. Like, listen, like that's so important.
Yeah.
And most of us men, we're wired as Mr. Fix-It Fox. Like we try to jump in and give advice and say, here's what you need to do. Look, people need to get their emotions out and they need to have those emotions heard. Even if you think their perspective is completely wrong, just at least be able to understand what they're feeling and be like, oh man, I can see how that's frustrating for you, or how you feel like you're hopeless, or, in this kind of situation, or what have you. So in other words, stop trying to fix people and listen, right? Because oftentimes, let me tell you what happened to me a lot as a therapist. Somebody would come into my office, and the therapeutic hour is actually 50 minutes because you got 10 minutes to transition. But somebody would come in at the beginning, they would start talking. I might say 2 sentences the entire hour, and they would get up and go, "Oh man, that helped me so much," right? And I did jack nothing, right? Like I just listened, because ultimately that's what I am as a professional listener. So listen, but talk. Don't be afraid to talk to people about asking straight up. Have you had thoughts you're hurting yourself? Have you been having thoughts like that? Because that does not cause problems. It's not suggestive in any way to say those things. Research has shown that that's effective in getting people to talk about it. In fact, many people are sort of unconscious that they're actually hoping somebody will ask them about that. And so even before, saying, hey, I can't talk to you anymore, you need to talk to a professional, ask them about their access to lethality. In other words, encourage them. Well, if you've been thinking about this, go talk to somebody, but also encourage them, if they have firearms in the home, to get them out of the house, right? Yeah. If there's a bottle of pills calling their name, that, like take the whole, give those pills to somebody and have them give you one, when you need them. In other words, don't be in possession of that entire prescription. So in other words, try to encourage them to get that lethality out of instant reach. Get a friend to keep your gun until things are better for you. Get your friend to have your medicine. You go by and pick up one a day, or somebody at work, or your wife, or whatever. But just try to remove those, means of self-harm from you as much as you possibly can. Obviously, when people start to experience psychotic symptoms, so psychotic symptoms would be when people are having hallucinations, whether they be visual, auditory. And here's what people don't realize about, and listen up, guys. If you don't treat depression and anxiety, it can get so bad that you end up having psychotic features like somebody would with schizophrenia. So you don't need to play around with depression, particularly when it starts to get severe, because you can lose touch with reality. You can start hearing things, seeing things, smelling things, being paranoid, so forth and so on. So it's important to get treatment. But when anybody starts to experience those levels of problems, you definitely need to encourage them to seek help. And what a person can always do is they can always, call the crisis line. You can actually call the crisis line as somebody who's helping someone. In other words, you can call, been on the call with someone, you're concerned. You can call that 988 number and say, hey, I've been talking with a friend. I think they're suicidal. What should I do? What should I say? They'll talk you through that. They'll help you with that. They're there to do that. So, the main thing is keep people talking, encourage them to seek help. If they're in a crisis mode, encourage them to go to the emergency room, because emergency rooms are trained to deal with people who are actively suicidal. Try to get someone who's physically present with them, a friend or family member, to go with them, or to at least make a safety plan to make sure they're going to go seek help. If they're not, let's say you're on the phone with somebody and you're convinced they're trying to do something that's going to be harmful for them, and they're not, you try to call them back, or whether they're not answering, you call your local 911 and say, hey, I have a friend that lives in Oregon, in Portland, Oregon, and I'm concerned. This is their name. This is their address. I'm concerned, get dispatched to send somebody out there to check on them, because they'll thank you for it at some point. Right. So don't be scared to ask the tough questions, but be prepared to listen to the hard answers as well.
Great advice.
If I could just touch real quickly on that one comment they were talking about, abuse as a child, I would encourage everybody but keep in mind this is something you may want to process with somebody. So know that this might be triggering. I would encourage everybody to Google ACEs inventory. So ACES inventory. That stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And what we know is that the more adverse childhood experiences we go through, the more likely we're going to have physical and mental and addiction challenges as adults and even health problems. And men are often shocked when they sit down and take that ACEs inventory to realize that they've been through some real trauma. It's not stuff they maybe thought was traumatic, but when they take their ACEs inventory, and it's very brief, you can do it in like 5 minutes or less, and they're sort of shocked at how many traumas they've experienced over the course of their life. So trauma is huge, and you definitely need to pay attention to that and be aware of how that might affect you. And that's not living in the past or blaming people. That's just understanding realities and trying to deal with maybe how you may have learned things in an incorrect way, and you need to do some relearning a more healthy way to approach life and approach issues and problems.
Great advice. This is from Kathleen again, Rising Emu. Remember not to compare your experience, but to really listen, which is great advice.
Yeah, it really is, because your experience is yours and not somebody else's, and you don't even know the parts they're not telling you or the parts that they're not even in touch with to tell you about yet.
Yeah. Carlitos, for U.S. veterans, dial 988, then press 1. It's a new option for contacting the Veterans Crisis Hotline.
Yeah, that's great. Great to hear from you, Carlitos. It's what a great guy. Enjoy his videos and his friendship and messages. But yeah, that's one of the great things the 988 number has done is they've created sort of a 2-tiered system there that sort of will get you to people that are trained specifically to help veterans, and that's important.
Excellent.
This is from
we're lacking in Canada. We're supposed to have a 3-digit number. At some point, like everything else in Canada, we lag behind the United States by 5 years. So supposedly it's in the works. Hopefully someday soon it comes into effect.
Got to get on them, J-Mac. This is from Jared, Thirsty Badger, also Canadian. If you can, bring someone with you to the doctor when you go. When you are in the thick of things, an advocate can be a real game changer, speaking from experience.
Yeah, most definitely. And say that to a friend. Like if you're talking to a friend about going to get help, offer. Say, hey man, I'll go with you. If you want me to sit in the waiting room, I'll do that. If you want me to go back, I'll do that. And some therapists are a little weird about that. They'll not want 2 people coming back, but just explain, hey, your friend can say this is the only way I'll do it if this person can come with me or whatever. So yeah, offer to go, offer to walk with people through that step, because it takes courage to like call and make an appointment or show up and get in your car. Like it's going to feel like walking through molasses, like it's fighting you, right? And some of that is the mental illness talking. And again, if you're a person of faith like me, some of that sort of spiritual warfare, like if somebody doesn't want you to get help, you got to fight through that. And so the more brothers you've got by your side to help you fight through that and do it not alone, but with somebody, the better.
Yep. Absolutely.
100%.
That's all the questions in the question box. And I'm completely, I don't come to these really prepared, and I'm probably less prepared for this than the artisan spotlights that I actually know the product and have specific questions. So, got anything, J-Mac?
No, I mean, I got a professional on here with us, right? I mean, he's.
Well, I got a shading question. So I've just been super busy. It's the start of the semester and everything. What are the scent notes on the Never Alone 3? Is it similar kind of thing, or was it what's the deal?
Oh, I wish I had my backup phone with me.
It's not the same. I don't have the scent notes on here. Maybe Jason or somebody can slide me a piece of paper here in a second with the scent notes listed. But
what's it smell like? Yeah,
it's so this is a lot brighter than 1 and 2, right? So this is like bergamot forward, very bright off the tub. Smells amazing.
Bergamot's one of the scents that are associated with increased mental health. Like there's research behind bergamot, lavender, peppermint, mandarin orange. Bergamot's one of the huge ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's nice and bright, man. It's I like my favorite of the 3, for sure. Yeah, this one.
And
Wow.
that's tomorrow. Is it tomorrow at 10 Eastern? Yes.
Yep.
Or,
Yes. So tomorrow morning, we'll be here at the Razor Company. Angelo's here now, but he'll be hosting along with me the Never Alone drop shave with J Mac. I'm not sure if Peter Charkalis is joining. He's out of the country right now, but it's going to be like an open shave, right? So everyone can kind of, as we're shaving, kind of pop in, say, this is what Never Alone means to me, stuff like that. So tomorrow everything drops, brushes. I'm sure everyone's seen Crystal's live. So there's like 75 brushes. The soap set, of course, in Ultima base. This year there's an EDP,
And there's
which smells amazing. I'm telling
merch.
you, this is incredible.
yeah, there's like stickers, T-shirts, bracelets,
Shirts, bracelets.
T-shirts. So you got
mugs.
T-shirts, coffee mugs, little swag packs that Crystal put together. You know, the little thank you card, a Never Alone sticker, one of these bracelets. This is this year's. So this is Never Alone 2, and then this is Never Alone 3, and it has the hotlines on the inside.
That's awesome.
Nice.
So it'll come with one of those. Also a car air freshener, which is a pretty cool addition. Yeah, so one of these will go into like every order. So if you order the Never Alone set, you'll get a little swag pack, and then of course the T-shirts, towels.
I was going to say, is there a Never Alone towel? Because I could see that being awesome. Yeah, people having that behind them during their shave videos.
Yep. So there's the Never Alone 3 towel in the Never Alone 3 colors. The brushes. There's they highlighted a bunch of the brushes, which you can preview on the website right now. They won't be available till 10 a.m. tomorrow, so it'll be listed as sold out, but you can preview them. And here is the scent notes handed me by the great Wizard of Oz from behind the curtain. Bergamot, passion fruit, guava, mango, peach, mandarin, lily of the valley, jasmine, iris, orris root, oak moss, musk, Himalayan cedar, Haitian vetiver, and sandalwood.
Sounds great.
Oh yeah, it's good.
Smells
Yeah,
great.
I have a sample of it. It's so good.
Jason just put all of the merch on the website for preview as well. So after the live, even though it's not for sale, you can still go and look and preview it and see which items, all of them, that you want to buy at 10 a.m. tomorrow. But yeah, it'll go live. So we got the live shave in the morning, which you're more than welcome to jump on if you'd like to on that as well. So we'll do a live shave at 9, and then after the shave ends at 10, everything goes live. There's going to be quite a few people in store, aside from the normal ones of us. Carlos and Caleb came in from Canada. Harry's here. Peter's coming tomorrow, aka Brushworks as well. Who did this? That's who did the. If you didn't know, aka does the Never Alone brushes for us, and he always does a phenomenal job.
Show Todd the coin.
Oh yeah.
We did do coins for this year too.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I think I saw that on an Instagram post. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's like the helping hand. It's the same as this. I don't know if you noticed this little. That's the little semicolon on his wrist.
Yeah.
So I don't if no one noticed that, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And then revealed today. So you have Caleb, who's here. Aylesworth did the label, did a phenomenal job, and he's an amazing person as well. And then AKA, who did the brushes, also amazing people. And then you got our ugly mugs right there.
Ugh,
Don't let
terrible.
that deter you from buying the soap, though.
That's right. Just hide that label when you do your shave of the day.
Yeah, put a piece of tape over it if you have to. But
That's right.
we do have more questions. Subtle Art Soap, Joe. Excuse me, I've been drinking Dr. Pepper. Just want to say thank you for doing this live. As a member of law enforcement, I can attest to how difficult this topic is to talk about. We're here for you, Joe. Great guy, Joe. Subtle Arts.
He is.
Thank you for your service too, as well.
Thank you, Joe.
Let's see. I don't know how to say that. I'm going to butcher that name, so I'm not even going to try. Can Todd talk about a strategy to get someone talking who you know is struggling in silence if they don't start the conversation? Great question.
Yeah, that's another topic we posted on that, or we talked about on that episode. And I'll make a point to do like either an Instagram post or an Instagram story on that episode, since I've mentioned it several times here. But sometimes if people don't want to talk, they're not going to talk. But you can kind of get to it in a roundabout way. Just getting them talking about something that's not a direct question but indirect. In other words, like, how's work going? How are things at home? How you been feeling? In other words, don't go right into like, are you depressed, or but just get other things like, because look, work life, or or even and this is something J-Mac's been through, having a situation where you can't work anymore because you've had an injury or a disability or illness. Like, those are huge. Like, whether it's your job or not, again, that wanting to provide, that's huge to men. And so getting men to talk about their work life or their financial life or whatever is usually going to get to to hit at those kinds of things. And get them talking about it. So you don't have to just come out and directly ask those questions, but mainly getting them talk. But what's amazing to me, this is what I love. This is fascinating to me, like as a researcher and as a mental health professional. What is so wild about this hobby is that when I first discovered this hobby, I was seeing these guys do these shave videos that I know that in any other setting they would not talk about their struggles. But something about having a razor in their hand, lather on their face, a camera in front, they're sitting there shaving. It shuts off a part of their brain that censors them in a lot of ways. And so they start talking about stuff. It's like, that blows my mind. But, so sometimes try to, if you're with that person face to face, or you can do something online that's fun, like, there's abilities to watch shows together now or watch sporting events together online. Do something fun with them, just where you're doing casual stuff. And sometimes in the middle of that, like, you're sitting there, watching a game or whatever, stuff will just come out because it's a different setting. That person feels comfortable. So, main thing is to be patient with them, but try to come at it in an indirect way.
Absolutely.
Great advice. And you're right about the shaving, and that's inadvertently what brought this whole thing about. I did a video where I was down and out, and I mentioned some stuff on the video. I was editing the video, and I'm like, ugh. Oh no, I'm not even gonna post this, and I almost didn't post it, and I'm glad I did, because I posted it, and then Jason reached out, and that started this whole thing. But yeah, I mean, I don't even really remember what I said in that video. My brain, I think, said it just shut off, and I just vented, and then I uploaded it. And I'm glad I did. I'm really glad I did.
I mean,
now.
what like you said, you probably weren't even fully in control of it, but you at one point you would have the decision to say, no, I'm going to hide that. But you didn't. You had the courage, and that has helped so many people. I mean, look at that. We're third year now of doing this, and that's not. It goes way beyond this, this project. And so, I would just encourage other people too. You'll be surprised. Like, if you mention something in your video, somebody's going to pick up on it, reach out to you. So, and if they're, if you need that in your, if you need people to offer you some advice or stuff, if you're doing shave videos, just mention that. Say, hey, down in the comments, give me some ideas about how to deal with this situation or whatever. You'd be surprised people will do.
Yeah.
100%. Yep.
Yeah, and you never know who's watching.
Nope.
Could be somebody,
Nope.
somebody who is J-Mac willing to share his story.
Yep, I am. Who asked that?
That was the Irene.
I am. So yeah. So 6 years ago. Was it 6 years ago? I'm trying to think. Trying to do the math. Yeah, that's about 6 years ago. Yeah. So I was just a normal guy working. I had a decent job, actually. I had a job I loved, and so long story short, just I worked outside, and just finished like a couple of weeks of brutal cold weather here in Canada. It was like minus 40. So even for you Americans, minus 40 here, minus 40 there. That was cold. So I had some chest pains and stuff on my weekend off. We had 3-day weekends every second weekend. And I was out hunting, and I probably walked about 6 kilometers out coyote hunting with a friend of mine, and just started coyote hunting with him. And he was huge into it. I was looking for a hunting partner. Finally found a guy. So I was just on the top of my game, like just job I loved. Everything was going good with my family. A wife, 2 kids. Found a new hunting partner. Everything was great. But I had this like chest thing, and I was like, maybe I have pneumonia or a chest infection from all this cold weather I've been working outside in. So I went to the ER. Actually knew the triage nurse. She took me out back with my symptoms and ran a couple tests. And she came back with a wheelchair, and I'm kind of like, huh? And took me out back to trauma, and that day changed my life forever. So I had a heart attack. That wasn't the big thing. That was in the grand scheme of things, the heart attack was minor. 2 weeks in the hospital, procedures done. I got home, and I'm also a diabetic. So between all the blood thinners, the stress in the body, I got an eye bleed, and that's what changed my life. So in the course of a couple weeks, I lost most of my vision. Went through 30 eye procedures, like laser procedures, 4 eye surgeries now, and that one weekend, and then the 2 weeks went from working and doing stuff to never being able to work again, never being able to drive again, having to relearn how to do a bunch of stuff, not being able to see, so I hit rock bottom, man. I was, go from working, making a decent living, to being on disability like that. So it was tough. So it was one day I was at home, and I mentioned I used to hunt, so of course I have firearms. And I was at home one day, and my wife was at work, kids were at school, and I was just done. I was just done. So trigger warning for people out there, but I am going to say it. But I loaded my shotgun. I had the 12 gauge loaded, and I was going to do it. And I was bound I was going to do it, but then at a moment of clarity, and I thought, well, shit, who's going to find me? I was like, my youngest is going to come home from school first before anybody, and he's 15 now, so he was like 11. I'm like, I can't do that to him, and then I can't do that to my wife, and then so that snapped me out of it. I unloaded the firearm, put it back in the closet. I reached out to a buddy of mine. I'm pretty sure it was Lyle. I'm a little fuzzy on the time, but I'm pretty sure it was Lyle, the Sask shaver, a really good friend of mine. I've been friends for a long time.
He just commented, as you said, just not to cut you off, Jay. As you said that, he commented, "Love you, brother. Glad you're still here."
Man, I love you too, Lyle.
Shaver, yeah. Incredible how that worked out.
Yeah, I love that man too. I mean, I owe my life to that man. I don't know if he's ever heard me say that, but I do, brother. I don't think I talked about with him what I had just almost done, but I just need somebody to talk to. I sent him a message, and we just started shooting the shit, and that was enough to kind of snap me out of it. And then, I'm still here today. Largely in part to the white shaving community. I really am. I've crafted amazing relationships with people in this community, and I don't go to therapy or anything. I like to think I got a pretty good handle on my own stuff. I've been through some stuff in the last year, as some people know, but there's just so many people here that are willing to listen and just willing to let you vent, and it's just been incredible. So
absolutely.
So that's my story.
DJ DJ Chubbs. I feel like this community has made a big difference in my mental health. Been hearing that a lot lately, and we're glad that that we can help. William. William's a great guy. Ian, he's simp. So appreciative of this live and the community. You are all such a great group. We appreciate you too, Ian.
We do.
My wife. This is from my wife. For someone who shuts down, what can they do to help themselves and open up to others?
She asking for a friend? Is that what she? Yeah,
could be
someone
she knows.
I was gonna say
really well. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how well you know the person, but sometimes you may have to, if it's somebody that you are really close to, sometimes you might have to press them. Sometimes you might have to push them. Earlier I talked about kind of being patient with people and getting at it, indirectly. But if it's somebody you know well, and you know that they have a tendency to shut down and stuff things, and you know that you can see it better than they can, sometimes you have to press in, lean in, and kind of push them a little bit,
Yeah.
There's this story. It's kind of a weird story, but just very briefly, my grandmother used to tell this story. They're both no longer with us, but he had lost his mom, and he's just not a man who expressed, emotion. He was, World War II veteran, and he lost his mom, and my grandmother knew it was bothering him, but it was just coming out as anger, and he was not. And one day he was just being real hateful and stuff, and she had just cooked a whole platter of fried chicken, and she threw it at him, right? I'm not advocating throwing things at your spouse, but she threw it at him, and he just broke down and cried for like 5 minutes, and it came out. So I'm not suggesting throwing things at your spouse, but I'm saying sometimes you might have to say, look, knucklehead, I know something's going on. And sometimes you may have to say, find out if they're okay, but say, look, I don't want to just shoot the breeze with you until you're ready to like really talk about this. I think we should just like maybe not talk until you're ready to really talk about something real. And so, tell them if they have their phone, it's like, could you put the phone down for just a minute? Could you put the phone down for a little bit? Could we turn the TV off? Can we just so get the distractions. Can we just sit here and have a conversation? Go to dinner and ask for a table towards the back or something. Just try to get those distractions out of the way. That's huge.
Great advice for somebody who may or may not be one who bottles it up. Trevor Piran. Trevor says, one of the worst things I've had to deal with is opening up to a very trusted person, and they don't show understanding and rather turn it around to talk about themselves.
Yeah, that's the worst, right? But and part of what you have to do, if that's really a true friend, is you might have to, say to them, like, look, man, like I'm really hurting here, and I hear that you got stuff going on, but I really need you to hear what was going on, and I want to hear what's going on with you, but like, this is about me right now, and I definitely want to hear what's going on with you, but sometimes we don't get what we need from people because we don't tell them. Meaning expectations are huge. For us men, anger is a huge issue. And one of my favorite definitions for anger is frustration over unmet expectations. Sometimes that friend doesn't know how you want them to respond, and we expect that they will automatically know what you need. And that's just not the case, right? And oftentimes it's maybe triggering to them, and stuff starts like they're so relieved that somebody else is talking, that they're starting to talk about stuff. So sometimes you may just have to tell people and be direct. Here's what I need from you, right? Like, I don't need advice. I don't need you to tell me what's going on with you. I need you to hear what's going on with me right now. But we probably all have that friend that no matter what's going on, they got it worse, right? Like they, you may just have to keep that friend at an arm's distance. Like, you love them, you wish the best for them. You might go to a game with them, whatever, but they're not going to be that person, right? That's going to be understanding. So, I would just say, tell the people that care about you, the people that truly care, tell them what you need. Like, tell them the kind of support you need, because people should not be expected to read minds. So if you've not put that expectation out there, I'd say to everybody, try to get better at being a better listener. Again, lead with your ears. I love the saying, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. That should tell you something, listen more than you talk. Yeah. Thanks, Lee. I appreciate that.
This is from Lee, Badly Brewed. There are always people who offer a glimmer of brightness.
Yeah.
And Lee is one of them.
Yeah, he is. He's also the luckiest guy I've ever seen in terms of winning stuff. That dude.
He's pretty lucky.
I want
to
to leave Thailand and come to Vegas with me, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
Must be something to do with the fact he's always living in the future. He can predict he's going to win.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
I'm just double checking the questions here. I believe we have them all. If you have any, send them now. Great live so far, though. Very informational. And you know what? I'm glad that that you were able to do this with us.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
anytime.
it's huge.
I think this, for this particular episode, just having a round table of us knuckleheads talking about what we think we know, would have been cool, to say, hey, I think, I think you're this, or, but having somebody who actually knows to come on and answer questions for me, it was a big deal today.
Yeah,
This,
me too.
this
Me
Well,
too.
project and the idea behind the project means a lot to not just J-Mac and I, but Jason and
yeah.
Peter and AKA and Caleb and a lot of people in this community. It means a great deal for us. So I'm
Yeah.
super glad that you're here to help enlighten and support.
Yeah, just kudos to Jason, because like early on when we started the Take Care Men Mental Health podcast, he called me on the phone. I got to hear the voice. Still hadn't seen the face, but got to hear the voice, and we had like an hour-long conversation about mental health through the generations, and yeah, he's been a big advocate and big supporter of what I've tried to do in my mission in mental health through these projects and others. And so kudos to Jason for, using this platform and taking, what is it now, almost, I guess, over an hour of talking about something really important. So kudos to him for inviting me on, and for you guys having me on as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Jason is an incredible human being. Single-handedly, that phone call when he reached out to me that day after the video and said, "Hey, you got a minute for a phone call?" That phone call changed my life. It really did, for the better. So yeah, that just what an amazing human being to help us get to do this and bring this to the community every year.
Absolutely. Yeah, it means a lot to me. I don't know if a lot of people know why from day one this was so important to me, but when I kind of came into wet shaving in the community, my brother-in-law had taken his own life, and it was not just a means to save money, but once I figured out, what the shaving was to save money, it became very meditative and relaxing for me. So it was kind of like, I can use this as like a me time, right? Take my time building the lather. It was very clearing of my mind, at the end of the day, go home and shave, and it can just kind of free you from the day's stress every couple days shaving my head. So when I heard, I'd been looking for something that kind of meant what I was feeling about why I was here, right? Some of the reasons why I was here. And so when Never Alone came up, the first one, I was all in. It's the first time I ever came to the razor company. Jason will tell you the story. I came to the razor company that very first time, and I bought 4 sets to give away because it meant that much to me. And the weekend before Never Alone 1 was released, my cousin took her own life, which kind of escalated the reason behind the importance of it for me. And so, here we are, Never Alone 3, they brought me on board just because of the amount of support that I had given it. Never intended on being anything other than a huge supporter and promoter and anything like that. Just always bought a set, always wanted a set, always telling people about it. And I'm very grateful to be here, very humbled to be part of this amazing team with all these great people. So that's why it means so much to me. I'm on the other side of it. J-Mac was on the side of somebody who's survived himself, and I'm kind of on the side of the family that's kind of left behind after it happens. So you kind of get both perspectives if you talk to J-Mac and I together, which is can be eye-opening from both sides.
100%. No, we're blessed to have you as part of the project, Ken. Like you said, you've been a huge supporter right from the start, and we're just bringing you on board this year has just been immensely rewarding to have you as part of the team. So, man, I love you, brother, man. I appreciate everything you've done.
Love you too, man. Oh, got a couple questions. Hopefully they're a little, let's see. Ian, I've teared up quite a bit sit during this live knowing that I'm not the only one who has struggled is a breath of fresh air. I know that sounds odd, but these lives are so good for me. That's why we're doing this, man. That's why this live in particular for tonight was very important. Because when when you say never alone and you show the soap set never alone, you kind of get the idea across, right? But when you're here talking about never alone and explaining people why you're never alone and what you can do to be never alone, that brings it to a whole new level, right?
Yeah, I agree 100%. And and the whole practice what you preach thing, right? Like that's I've been through some stuff with the help of the community. I've been able to come out the other side. So, I try and do whatever I can do to put that back into the community to try and help as many people as I can. Like I said, I'm not a therapist, but I'll listen to you all day long if you're going through some stuff. My phone line's always open. My DMs are always open. Like that's like I literally live for this stuff to just try and help as many people as I can. Despite not being a professional, at least I can be a good listener.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all people, like Todd said, sometimes people just need an ear, right?
And Discord really is a great platform for connection. It's I love Discord for that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Yeah, like I said earlier, man, like literally every night, if not every night, every second, like there's a big group chat going on in there. It's just, and like I said, we talk about everything, like literally everything, like life problems, financial problems, people going through stuff, and then just busting chops, talking about shaving, talking about sports, the weather, whatever. Like anything goes, and there's no subject that's really taboo. And if somebody says something heavy, everybody shuts up, they listen, and they all do what they can do to help. It's really quite inspirational.
Absolutely. And the great thing about that group chat is I don't know how many times I've come home from a shitty night at work and just kind of need to listen, maybe just sit there on mute, but just kind of sit there, and I just need to listen to people talking and laughing and having a good time. And sometimes that's just enough to say, okay, I'll unmute now and join the conversation and start laughing and joking with the guys,
That's right.
So it just occurred to me, I would encourage, obviously we don't want people to do anything they're uncomfortable with, but, as I said, J-Mac, had the courage to post that video. I know there's guys out there that have been doing, videos for a long time and probably have gone through some stuff and have just never shared it. I would challenge them to seriously consider whether, sharing that might be of an encouragement to someone and just explore that. I'm not telling them, obviously I don't know their situation, but I'm telling you, when you hear someone has been through something and it rings true for you, that, again, never alone, like just that feeling of like, oh, I'm not broken. There's not something, irreparable about me. Like there can be better days. My story is not finished. It can get better. That is huge. That is huge. So guys out there, if you've got a story to tell, consider telling it.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
100%.
Rob Fagan. Rob says, Rob's another great human being.
He is.
2 little words that mean so much and express how grateful I am for this community, and that is simply thank you. Thank you, Rob, for being a great person as well.
Yes, sir. Rob's a great fellow over there in beautiful Ireland.
That's right. That's right. From across the globe, he spreads happiness to everywhere.
He does.
Yeah.
He does.
So I don't have anything. If you guys got in chat, the mic is yours.
I'm good, but I would like to thank Todd again for coming on. This has been hugely beneficial to me as well. I mean, I've learned some stuff tonight that I'm definitely going to take away and use to improve myself. So thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate it. And to Ken, of course, man, I love you, man. So thank you so much for co-hosting this tonight. This has been incredible.
Absolutely.
Always a pleasure, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
You got it. And this live, it'll be saved and in the Razor Company. If you feel like sharing it to spread the word, please share it. If you think that somebody that may need to hear some of the things that Todd talked about, tag them in it. Let's help spread the word and make sure that everyone knows that they're not alone and give them the resources that they need to understand and realize that they are not alone.
That's right.
Okay, guys, wrap it up here. Take care. Thanks a lot, Todd, for joining us. And we'll be back to our regular scheduled Artisan Spotlights next Friday, I believe. But 10 a.m. tomorrow, 9 a.m. is the shave, 10 a.m. is the drop. I suggest if you've seen a brush that you like, that you get on early, because it will sell fast.
Yeah.
As it always does every year.
People are already strategizing how they figured it out. A few people, I think, have picked more than one brush they would be happy.
There might
to
be a couple Canadians that drove here from Toronto just so they could get the brush they want.
Yep.
I don't think that's why, but I'm gonna make fun of them for it anyways. All right, guys.
Would Jason make them sleep outside, or can they bring their sleeping bag inside the store overnight to wait for them?
I think Angelo's invited them up to the roof, rooftop to have a sleepover up there. So, all right, guys. I'll let you go, Todd. Thanks a lot for joining. J-Mac, love you. I'll talk to you soon, brother. Everyone else, have a great weekend.
Have a great night, everybody.